In the world of anime, AKATSUKI is one of the most iconic and well-written villain group of all time. It's up there with the likes of Phantom Troop from Hunter x Hunter and the Espadas of Bleach. And considering that Naruto is also my favorite anime of all time, sitting at number 1, in this video, we will be creating a tier list ranking each AKATSUKI member from best to worst. But before we do, make sure to subscribe to my channel. We are trying to hit 1,000 subs and your support would be very much appreciated. So with that being said, let's get right into it. First, we need to establish a criteria that will become the basis of all our rankings throughout this video. First is strength. In the ninja world, all AKATSUKI members are S-rank ninjas, meaning every member are all exceptionally strong in their own regards. But of course, in a group, there's always going to be someone who is considered the strongest and the weakest. So this tier list is by no means to discredit their excellence, but rather a measurement of how remarkable they are being compared to the rest of the other members. The second one is skill, and this refers on how efficient they are in executing their ninja techniques and how creative they can be executing their abilities in battle. This is important because it determines the rewatch value of their performances as villains. I mean, who does not want to watch a good fight, you feel what I'm saying? Third is reputation. This simply means how much aura they got, like how cool they were, the feats they have garnered throughout their run, and how they rode off into the sunset as a member of AKATSUKI. And I guess the last one is impact. How impactful they were, not limited to AKATSUKI, but also to the entire Naruto universe. Because if you are an S tier ninja, we gotta at least put it into consideration how your actions left a mark on the story. And with these 4 aspects in consideration, we will be going over the 13 members of the group and rank them from best to worst. Anyway, affiliates like the Taki group and Kabuto won't be included in this analysis. But if this video gets to 1,000 likes, I might do a separate video about them. So click that button below and let me know. The first one off the list is Sasori. Before joining AKATSUKI, he was a ninja from the Sand Village. Prior to the death of his parents during the Second Ninja War by Kakashi's father, Sakumo, he was raised by his grandmother Chiyo, who was the counselor of the Sand Village, a medical ninja, and a pioneer to the ninja technique puppeteering, which is a ninja technique that she passed on to Sasori that will become his primary fighting style throughout his life. As the name implies, puppeteering is a practice that utilizes puppets in combats. Using chakra strings, shinobis using this practice control their inanimate fighters. They typically load it with various fighting arsenal while they keep themselves at a distance in order to control their puppets safely. People from his hometown would come to call him a genius as he reaches high levels of mastery in this ninja art, and later on would come to invent some ingenious puppets such as Karasu, who's notable for releasing poison-coated projectiles, Kuroari, which hides serrated blades underneath his arms and encages enemies in his stomach, and Sancho, which was commonly used as a shield due to its defensive build, all of which will be inherited by Kankuro later down in the series. I think Sasori has one of the most unique fighting styles in Naruto, because puppeteering is something not commonly used by a lot of ninjas. Plus, he's so dedicated to his art form that he even turned himself into a puppet, a heart of a human inside of a puppet's body frame, turning himself into a literal killing machine with all sorts of weapons in his body. Now in theory, that shit is fucking cool. But compared to the rest of the members, he's the one with the least amount of aura. He was the first AKATSUKI member to go out of the series, despite being one of the older members of the group. The brother was 35 years old. He was older than Kakashi and a lot of the other Jonins at the time. With this, you would expect a little bit of survivability coming off from his veteran experience. Second, he was defeated by a 16-year-old Sakura. Like, are you serious? Sakura? Like, granted with the help of Chiyo, but seriously, a girl who monkey punches for a fighting style and is primarily a medical ninja. That's rough. And lastly, after he died, his body frame got extracted by Kankuro. Like, imagine your body getting owned by a puppeteer inferior to you later on. Like, that's some crazy levels of disrespect. And as dedicated he was in his puppets, his tale as a villain is just fucking underwhelming. Although props to him helping catch the one tail, but his contributions as a senior to the group outweighs the fucking humiliation he got before the lights went out on him. So for that, I'm gonna have to put him at the D tier. The next one would be Deidara, a shinobi from the Stone Village and Akatsuki's youngest member, becoming an S-rank ninja at just the age of 19. In case it's not established yet, Akatsuki members often operate in pairs, and during most of his tenure, he was partnered with Sasori. Growing up, Deidara was mentored by the third Tsuchikage, Onoki, and under his supervision, plus the mischievous endeavor of him learning the Iwagakure Kinjutsu, Deidara mastered his distinct fighting style, clay detonation, an explosion release-based technique wherein he produced clay sculptures using the mouths on his body, but typically from his hands, and infuses it with his own chakra, which gives it the capability to explode upon his command. What's interesting about these clay sculptures is that they're also animate objects that can vary in shape and sizes. Some were shaped like a bird that gives him the ability of flight, and others were miniature size which were good for sneak attacks. He's basically the Katsuki Bakugo of this anime, blonde, hot-headed, and explosive, but instead of nitroglycerin sweats, it's animal-shaped C4s. His most powerful move was the CO Ultimate Art, wherein he consumes a huge amount of clay with the mouth on his chest and transforms himself into a nuclear bomb that gradually detonates as his body grows massive and eventually implodes. It was reported that his explosion range can span up to 10 kilometers that can kill anyone who catches it, making him the ultimate. He's like Electrode from Pokemon, but 30 times stronger. I think he's one of the more distinct members of the Akatsuki because his contributions to the team can be quite easy to establish. Do you need somebody to commit mass destruction towards your enemies? Well, he's your go-to guy. Do you need somebody to do an assassination work that requires discretion and silence? Well, he'd definitely do poorly in that. With his ability, you just know how you'll be able to use him. Plus, he has a very wacky personality, which makes him one of the standouts of that very grim group. Spoiler alert though, he died against his fight with Sasuke, who was on his cursed seal form, projecting revenge in place of the humiliation he got from his older brother, Itachi, who countered his technique useless with genjutsu. In that fight, we saw the fullest extent of his current potential as an S-rank ninja, because the boy went full psychopath mode and went toe-to-toe with Sasuke on steroids. But in the end, Deidara decided to take Sasuke with him by blowing himself up through C0. However, Sasuke manages to escape narrowly by summoning Manda to take the blow for him. Talk about rough play, feel what I'm saying? But to be fair, Deidara's defeat wasn't as embarrassing as Sasori's though. At least he was fighting someone at the same age bracket as him and was talented as a teenager. But still, he was very reckless and hasn't managed to hit his adult potential because of his death. So for that, I'm gonna have to put him up at the C tier. Next up, we got Kakuzu. And contrary to Deidara, he is the oldest member of Akatsuki with the age of 91 years old. And he was the organization's ultimate bag chaser, which made him their natural treasurer. He's like Frankenstein if he was a street ninja. Anyway, born from the waterfall village, Kakuzu was an elite ninja that was tasked to assassinate Senju Hashirama, the first Hokage during the First Ninja War. And considering that Hashirama was literally called the god of shinobi, he ultimately failed his mission. Because of this, he was heavily punished by his village and was imprisoned, which led to his hatred towards his hometown, deciding to mutinize it by killing their village elders and stealing the Earth Grudge Fear Kinjutsu in the process before deserting it. Prior to this, he'd become a wealthy bounty hunter, then later on, joining the Akatsuki after the Second Ninja War. His fighting style is quite grim. Mastering the stolen Earth Grudge Fear, he has the ability to attach and detach his body parts using the black steel-like threads that are embedded in his body, and which he can use to attack and defend himself. He also has the ability to consume the hearts of those he defeated, which gives him the ability to extend his lifespan and his ninjutsu capabilities. Notably, the multiple elemental releases he can also wield from the masks on his back. Imagine the power of Basil Hawkins' Straw Dolls, plus Aang's ability to use all 4 elements. Yep, That's Kakuzu right there, and he is extremely broke, so much so that he and his duo managed to kill Asuma. It also took the combined effort of Naruto, Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, and Kakashi to kill Kakuzu alone. Unlike the other AKATSUKI members, his death even contributed more to his aura because he went down giving 1 genin, 3 chunins, and 1 jonin a hard time. With years of experience on his back alongside with his broken power, he naturally became an overripe S-rank ninja. But what simply held him back into a higher tier was because even after years of living, he wasn't able to become the most impactful member out there. He only lived for money, which was totally fine. Gotta get that green, man. But after his death, he just easily became a fleeting thought. In the overall state of the Naruto timeline, he wasn't able to become something influential and groundbreaking, which is something that would have been completely plausible if he were technically immortal. But other than that, he was great for a villain still, and if you have to recall the things that he was capable of, I think he deserves a spot at the B tier. If Kakuzu was near immortal, so is the next character on this tier list, which is Hidan. Hidan is a devotee of this deity called Jashin, who was known to be the god of death, pain, and destruction. Its religion, Jashinism, revolves around the philosophy that evil is the true nature of mankind and its followers must inflict death and pain amongst themselves and around them as a form of worship. It conducts human sacrifices, murders, and self-harm rituals, which is very fucking psychotic if you ask me. Hidan, being a stern follower of God Jashin, has intently practiced its inhumane teachings and in the process has granted him a ritual from the Jashin cult that gave him the power of immortalization. Not just being able to survive fatal injuries he'll receive, but also finding pleasure on it. So he's basically a masochist instead of a ninja, but that aside, this immortalization is where most of his ninja art root from, which is very complex and tormenting. His typical attacks is basically wielding his giant weapon, the triple-bladed scythe that looks straight out of Bleach. Its design was made to specifically wound and extract blood from his targets, and afterwards, in which he will ingest that triggers his transformation to cursed form. Utilizing his gift of immortality, he draws a circle of ritual in which he resides in order to activate his ability, wherein every self-harm he would inflict upon himself, the enemy would also feel it. This was the cause of Asuma's death when Hidan stabbed himself in the heart. And with this ability, he can really be a manipulative killer. And for me, just like Deidara, Hidan's ability can be very distinct for certain situations. This can be great for hostage taking if you'd think about it, but in a lot of aspects, it has a lot of weakness. First, it's too tactically limited. You can only target one person at a time, and if somebody managed to get Hidan step out of that circle, his connections towards his victim would get cut. And upon facing tough enemies and dynamic battles, these conditions can be very tough to achieve. But somehow if he manages to do so, it's safe to say that he can be really scary and unstoppable. That aside, Hidan has the toughest fashion style in the anime as well. The brother always dresses up like he came off the modeling runway, and his drip really complements his flashy ass weapon. Not to mention his slick back hairstyle as well. And the bro is the drippiest character in that series, 100%. But I do have to say, his deranged personality kind of cancel out that appearance, cause all the motherfucker talks about is killing somebody to offer to Lord Jashin. And if he's not, the guy is maniacally laughing in pure bloodlust. Like, damn bro, chill. And yeah, during his death, Shikamaru cut his head off and buried it in the forest while he's smoking a cigarette and giving up a cool speech that he will never see the sunlight again. So yeah, he kinda got mic dropped and was buried into this world in humiliation. And there's an argument that he still might be alive because any kind of physical injuries doesn't kill him, including being decapitated. And to be honest, that could be true, but in the long run he'll die of malnutrition and being consumed by maggots anyway, so he'll be forced to die regardless. But with everything considered, he could have been a B tier easily if his powers only wasn't too demanding and he wasn't too unhinged. So for that, I'm gonna have to put him up at the C tier. The next one is Orochimaru, a legendary figure in the ninja world, hailed as one of the 3 legendary Sanins, alongside with his comrades Jiraiya and Tsunade. It was a title given to them by Hanzo the Salamander, a warlord from the Rain Village, feared by the entire world. And fun fact, Rain Village is also the place where AKATSUKI's base was formed and located. That aside, Orochimaru was primarily known for mastering a lot of snake-based techniques. This consists of his attacks, summoning techniques, and even his body transformations. He was already powerful enough with these, but later on, he embodied a personal goal, which was to learn and unlock all of the world's ninja techniques, which led him to an insatiable hunger for knowledge and immortality. Orochimaru did a lot of things in attempt to achieve these, and a lot of them were really evil too. He experimented on people, conducted a lot of unethical research, delved into forbidden jutsus, committed murder, kidnapping, and terrorism, and of course, joining AKATSUKI. Let me just say that throughout the entire Naruto franchise, from the original series in 2002, and all the way up to Naruto Shippuden, Orochimaru played a huge role not just as a villain but also as a character to keep the storyline developing. He killed the 3rd Hokage Hiruzen, he kidnapped Sasuke in the process and became his teacher to become the strong ninja he is known today, and his descent to evil is one of the things that gave Jiraiya a purpose as a ninja. He created the Sound Village, he invented the Cursed Seals, and even more refined Edo Tensei, which was a very crucial ninja technique that empowered the entire 4th Ninja War. Simply put, he was just a genius and an important character on the timeline. But being objective as an AKATSUKI member, Orochimaru did so little for the organization. So much so that a lot of people often forget that at some point in time, he was a member of it. He never stole any tailed beasts, he never had any hard-hitting fights for their cause, and his only memorable action as a member was attempting to take over Itachi's body for his scientific goal. Even though he was so strong, he was quite passive and never had any central upholdings in the group, and he was only after his self-interest a lot of the time, which is a point deduction on his behalf. Anyway, another fun fact, he was also the original partner of Sasori long before Deidara has joined the group, so that's pretty cool. But that aside, he could have been an easy S tier considering he has a legendary status, exceeding most of the members, but his passive participation is what held him back a little, so with that I'm gonna have to give him a comfortable spot at the A tier. The next one would be a bit of a novelty entry, Juzo Biwa, one of the lesser known members that AKATSUKI had, but I think more or less, he's deserving a bit of a spotlight for the ranking purposes. Originating from the Mist Village, Juzo Biwa was an S-rank ninja and was a former member of the Seven Swordsmen, a legendary group regarded as the strongest ninjas at the Mist Village. He was the original partner of Itachi Uchiha when he first entered the organization before being replaced later on by Hoshikage Kisame. Juzo Biwa was known for wielding the Executioner's Blade or the Kubikiri Bocho, a sword known for reinforcing and fixing itself with iron from the blood that it garners from its enemies. Prior to his death, the sword's ownership was passed over to Momochi Zabuza, which was the first high-ranking ninja that Team 7 defeated early on the series, and then later on to Suigetsu, who was Sasuke's right-hand man for the majority of the show. Although his screen time is very limited, it was easy to tell that he was a ninja that was dedicated to AKATSUKI's goals and is powerful enough to hold his threshold as an S-rank ninja. He unfortunately met his demise when he and Itachi was sent on an assassination mission on his home country, the Land of Water, wherein he was met by Yagura, the 4th Mizukage, and the Two-Tails Jinchuriki. Amidst their fight, Juzo protected Itachi by deflecting a bomb heading towards their direction, resulting into stabbing himself with the Executioner's Blade on a nearby tree after its recoil. It's a shame that we didn't see much of him, but because of his sacrifice, Itachi recognized the threat the Mizukage possessed, invoking him into using the Amaterasu and fleeing into safety. As I have said, it's unfortunate that we didn't see much of him, but somehow we need to acknowledge his existence, so for that we'll have to put him at the D tier, until there are further analysis that is done about him, albeit unlikely. Now, since we're talking about a member of the Seven Swordsmen, here's another member of that troupe that also joined AKATSUKI later on, replacing Juzo Biwa as Itachi's partner, Hoshikage Kisame. Also hailing from the Mist Village, Kisame was the wielder of the shark skin sword, better known as the Samehada. With its rough, scaly texture, it is known for scraping through the enemy's skin, causing them to bleed and absorb their chakra. The more chakra it absorbs, the bigger and more powerful it gets. Alongside with this, Kisame can also fuse with his sword, morphing his appearance into a bipedal shark hybrid, boosting his overall power. And aside from his swordsmanship, Kisame also has a thorough mastery in various water techniques that complement his fighting ability. In terms of raw strength and tankiness, Kisame is one of the most reliable members of AKATSUKI, boasting a height of 6'5" and a muscular body frame, which is the key factor in order to wield the Samehada, the heaviest sword among the 7 legendary swords from the Mist. But to me, one of the biggest key factor that Kisame have as a ninja was his loyalty. Prior to him joining the AKATSUKI, Kisame was known to be a fiercely loyal shinobi that gained his notoriety from killing his own comrades in order to protect the secrets of the Mist village. Even though this gave him some existential crisis and a political disillusionment in his village power, bro was the farthest away from being a snitch. After the Mist village was corrupted by Fuguki Tsukaisen, who was a former member of the Seven Swordsmen and his troop superior, finding out that he was selling information to their enemies. That became Kisame's last straw for his moral code, leading to him assassinating Fuguki for his betrayal and claiming ownership to the Samehada, which, prior to his death, is something that he wielded throughout the series. Shying away from his village corruption, he naturally aligned with AKATSUKI's goal later on, which led to him joining. Not to mention, he also had a very honorable death. Even as a villain, he was defeated by Might Guy in a deathmatch, but even then, he put out an incredible fight. He pushed the man into using his 7th gate and Hirodora, which was one of the strongest moves that he had. And we have to remember, Madara claimed that Might Guy is the strongest ninja alive in the series, so managing to put him on his edge was not an easy feat to do. So respect to him despite of that loss. Shortly after the battle, Kisame was then shackled up by Aoba in order to access his memories with his mind-reading technique in an attempt to extract information regarding the AKATSUKI's plans and mission. But from out of nowhere, Kisame once more have proven himself to be the most loyal man out there and unalive himself by locking his body in his water prison jutsu and letting his summoned sharks devour his blooded body, making sure that no information would be taken out of him as death approaches him. And that guy was fucking extreme, man. However, I guess it's just a shame that for the most parts of the series, even though he was powerful, he served more as a right-hand man to Itachi rather than his partner. He was often overshadowed and lacked a commanding presence compared to the other members of the group. So yeah, it's a bit of a waste on that one, but regardless, with everything being considered, I think he deserves a comfortable spot at the B tier. The next one would be one of the most iconic characters, not just of the AKATSUKI, but also of the show. Itachi Uchiha, which is the older brother of Sasuke. Born from the Leaf Village, Itachi has always been hailed as a prodigy, achieving remarkable feats at a very young age. At the age of 7, he graduated from the Ninja Academy, making him the second youngest on history to become a ninja. At the age of 10, he then passed the Chunin exams. At the age of 11, he joined Anbu, a special force of high-level ninjas that is known for their dark missions, such as doing assassinations, spy works, interrogations, and other more high-risk missions. And finally, at the age of 12, he got promoted as an Anbu Division captain. Going onto his ninja techniques, he has a proficient skill level on wielding all ninja tools, including Anbu's standard sword, taijutsu, and of course, the fire release. But where he stood out the most is his mastery of using the Sharingan, a powerful ocular ability exclusive to the Uchiha lineage, evolving its form from the One Tomoe all the way up to the Mangekyo Sharingan, giving him access to movesets such as the Susanoo, Amaterasu, and Tsukuyomi. That aside, he also had a good function to the rest of Sharingan's other benefits. As a shinobi, Itachi wasn't just strong. He was also an intelligent and extreme tactician that a lot of the actions that he did and was forced to do has shaped the entire Naruto's timeline. At the age of 13, Itachi has received the command from Danzo, the leader of the Root, with the approval of the third Hokage Hiruzen, to assassinate his entire clan, the Uchihas, in order to prevent a revolution that they are devising against the Leaf Village that will overthrow the current government and kill a lot of people in the process. Now imagine getting the order to kill your entire family for the sake of preventing an internal war. Not just your parents, but also your uncles, aunts, and all your extended cousins and nephews. That is a rough order for a teenager. Although he was permitted to keep Sasuke as a survivor, ensuring that their lineage wouldn't be completely wiped out, plus just out of brotherly love, now this was the defining moment of the anime itself. He was the reason why there are barely any Uchihas in the present day, bringing a total of only 2 members of the modern Uchiha clan, Sasuke and his daughter Sarada, who would later be introduced in the Boruto series. And if we're gonna count Sakura, and I guess, since she is Sasuke's wife, but alongside of which, Sasuke also witnessed the death of his entire clan at just the age of 7 years old. This drove him to despair, and Itachi has even more provoked his younger brother to take revenge on him later on in the future, painting himself as a villain early on the series. This became Sasuke's driving force for becoming stronger and descending to darkness during his earlier days, with Itachi becoming an indirect influence to everything his younger brother did during the entire series. The death and revival of Orochimaru, the reanimation of the 4 Hokages, the death of Danzo, which led to the disbandment of Root, and his infiltration to the 5 Kage Summit, which gave leeway for Tobi to declare the 4th Ninja War. But most importantly, his descent to darkness became a driving force to Naruto on becoming stronger throughout the series in hopes to bring him back to Konoha. And all of this was a ripple effect of Itachi's actions. In terms of being AKATSUKI, however, it's important to remember that he joined the organization as a spy in order to keep the Leaf Village safe from their threats. So his contributions as a villain was less than stellar and tries to keep it just minimal enough to make them believe he's on their side, making his evil less central compared to the others. But overall, Naruto's storyline couldn't have been possible without the influence of Itachi's actions, so that's why I will be putting him easily at the A tier. The next AKATSUKI member on the list is Zetsu, created by Kaguya Otsutsuki, consisting of 2 embodiments that form into the known member when fused together, White Zetsu and Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu is the physical manifestation of Kaguya. She have left before she was sealed away by his sons, Hagoromo and Hamura, that lives with the sole purpose of reviving her sometime in the future, which came through after allying up with Akatsuki and provoking the 4th Ninja War. And the other half is White Zetsu, a plant humanoid that was the first out of the many awakened. The first White Zetsu to have exist was cultivated by Madara post First Ninja War from the roots of the God Tree by infusing it with Hashirama's cells that gave him the unique ability such as self-cloning, body regeneration, spore effects, making him more special compared to the 1,000 other Zetsus later down the show. With Black Zetsu eventually crossing paths with Madara, he and this White Zetsu have fused with each other, creating what would become the Zetsu we would come to know of as the member of AKATSUKI. His contributions in the organization is primarily spy works and disposing the bodies and retrieving the rings of the deceased members in order to prevent information leaks, and his position is quite discreet and seldoms himself into combat situations, rarely utilizing his inherent skills. Despite that, he was quite a complex character, considering with both Black and White Zetsus have differing personality and often find themselves in childish bickers. Child had a more cold demeanor, while White was more childish and lively. But with everything considered, Zetsu was more utilized as an extra hand, comic relief, and plot device for Kaguya in the progression of the story. He's evasive in combat, lacks distinction as a villain, and was more constructed as an aid and a deliberate stepping stone addition to the crew. So for that, I'm gonna have to put him at the E tier. Next, we got Konan, an S-rank kunoichi and one of the 3 founding members of AKATSUKI. Born from the war-torn Rain Village, Konan grew up with the other co-founders of AKATSUKI, Nagato and Yahiko, who would turn out to be Pain later on. Keep watching the video to find out. Growing up destitute at the outskirts of the Rain Village, they were orphans of the Second Ninja War, just living in survival mode on their own. until they have met Jiraiya, who would later become their mentor, that would teach them basic ninja techniques in order to help them survive. As they got strong enough, Jiraiya have eventually left to return to the Leaf Village, and they have continued to develop their skills on their own. Konan have mastered the art of paper technique, wherein she would base the entirety of her skill set on that regard. From paper shurikens, angel wings, and even the reconstruction of her entire body and surroundings in paper called the dance of the Shikigami, it can be easily countered by fire techniques, but it needs to be executed on the same ninjutsu level as Konan's to at least see some visible damage. Her contributions to AKATSUKI spans all the way to the inception of it, as she served mostly as a right-hand woman to her love interest and their leader, Yahiko, and she has been there ever present to all of their activities. But in the anime, we've most seen her in action during the infamous Konoha raid, where she helped plague destruction and enemy interrogation. Now let's give flowers to where it's due. Konan has been loyal and active to AKATSUKI ever since the beginning, but she more focused serving as the glue to the team rather than an active contributor to hunt down tail beasts or expand their influence. She handles majority of AKATSUKI's internal affairs, one of which was concealing and taking care of Nagato, contributing to the planning and strategies needed for their operations, recruiting members, and assist in gathering information. But battle-wise and in terms of command presence overall, she's kind of lacking throughout the run, which is understandable. Although it's noteworthy to acknowledge that her fight with Obito was easily one of the most iconic moments she had on the series, showcasing her full-out loyalty for AKATSUKI as their new leader before it went defunct, protecting Nagato's Rinnegan from being stolen, almost killing himself in the process, and showcasing the true extent of making her an S-rank ninja. She really stepped out of her usual playing zone for that one. But with everything considered from her years of tenure in AKATSUKI, Konan easily secures a spot at the B tier. The next one is another of the three founding members of AKATSUKI, Nagato. Born from the Rain Village, Nagato was also an orphan of the Second Ninja War, sharing a similar story with Konan and Yahiko, growing up destitute, mentored by Jiraiya, and forming AKATSUKI with the goal of liberating their village from wars and restoring peace. Hailing from the Uzumaki clan just like Naruto and Kuina, Nagato is notable for having a large reservoir of chakra in his body that piqued the attention of the old and dying Madara. This led to him unwillingly inheriting the Rinnegan, which will become his primary power towards the entire series. And compared to the trio, Nagato was quiet and shy, but he grew up to become the most powerful later on as he awakened his Rinnegan, giving him the ability to control the 6 paths of reincarnation, which consists of Naraka path that can summon the King of Hell for interrogations, Animal path that can summon various summoning beasts, Asura path, an augmentation of mechanical weapons, Human path that reads mind and extracts souls, Preta path that absorbs all form of chakra and ninjutsu, and Deva path that has the ability to manipulate the gravitational pull. However, because of his overusage and incompatible body to the Rinnegan, he grew ill over time, making him extremely malnourished and incapable. Despite this, he still served as central figure to the operations and leadership of AKATSUKI in both internal and external factors, devising all the organization's movements against the ninja world. His main feats as a soldier, however, is also massive, killing his mentor Jiraiya, and serving as the main muscle behind the Konoha raid, and almost killing Naruto in his Sage mode. Nagato's contributions expand to the entirety of AKATSUKI, and no movement goes out without technically his approval. Although, because his original body is secluded away from everyone, most of the credit went to their de facto Pain, and he served more as technically an invisible factor. His presence and direct command throughout was unfortunately shaded by Konan and Pain due to his illness, but still, giving him an in-depth analysis and consideration, this guy basically is the biggest pillar and foundation they have as a crime organization, and for that, he comfortably sits at the A tier. Now next is the last founding member of the AKATSUKI and its leader figure, Pain. Born originally as Yahiko, he was also raised at the Rain Village, sharing the same story as Konan and Nagato. The idea of establishing the organization came from him, which made him serve as their first leader, creating their core value and missions. He was a character that was literally made by courage and idealism. Going into his ninja techniques, Yahiko was said to be a talented sword technique user and has a high level of mastery of fire, water, and wind release. However, during one fateful day, Danzo has misinformed Hanzo about their false vendetta of overthrowing his authority towards the Rain Village, and their peace movement was just a phony. This was done because for some reason at the time, Danzo saw Akatsuki as a threat to the Leaf Village and wanted to increase his reputation as a leader. I mean, he was right that they become a threat, but it's only because they provoked them, you feel what I'm saying? But anyway, that aside, with Hanzo believing Danzo, he has set up a trap meeting with Akatsuki in the cover of peace treaty that had the ulterior motive of wiping them out. But Yahiko has sacrificed his life in order for Konan and Nagato to survive, which led to his death. This has caused for Akatsuki to completely transform into the rogue organization they are known today in order to achieve their terms of peace. Upon Yahiko's death, his corpse was then reinvented into the Deva Path from Nagato's 6 paths, renaming himself as Pain. Albeit being controlled by Nagato, throughout the series, he became the face of peace-seeking evil. And his core philosophy when he was still alive was what became the blueprint for Nagato to execute on. Standing as their de facto leader, with his presence bringing fear, he was an iconic superpower that pushed everyone onto their edges and embodies the will and purpose of Akatsuki that rattled the ninja world. His lead at the Konoha raid, him creating the giant crater that forever shaped the Leaf Village landscape, the death of many of their opposition, everything had Pain's hands on it. He was a symbol of dominance, leadership, and power, and that helped nurture Akatsuki, being the notorious criminal organization they are known today, pre-death and post-death. So for that, I'm going to give him a spot at the S tier. And lastly, the man who manipulated everything behind the shadows of the series, from the slow downfall of Akatsuki, Fourth Ninja War, and the erection of Divine Tree, Obito Uchiha. Born from the Leaf Village, Obito was mentored by the 4th Hokage, Minato, alongside with his teammates, young Kakashi and Rin, who was a medical ninja. Just like Naruto, Obito grew up not knowing his parents, and because of this void, he had also dreamt of becoming a Hokage one day. In terms of his ninja skills, he was more or less an average ninja that had a grasp on basic ninja skills and fire release. He only seemed inferior because he was pitted against Kakashi a lot, who was well above most of his peers. But as a genin, I don't think he was a terrible ninja. Later down the series, Obito has awakened the Sharingan at the age of 14 after Rin was kidnapped by a Stone Village ninja amidst their mission. However, as we all know, after him and Kakashi secured the victory, the enemies have set up a trap to explode the cave they were fighting on, which led to Obito being crushed by a boulder and giving his left eye Sharingan to Kakashi to replace his wounded one. And from there, Kakashi would accidentally kill Rin against his will in order to protect the Leaf Village from the three-tailed beast implanted on her body against her will that will wreak havoc once they returned home. But let's focus on Obito. He was eventually rescued by Madara and was implanted the Hashirama cells in order to aid his recovery. Eventually, he'll find out about Rin's death, in which would awaken his Mangekyo Sharingan. From there, Obito has enveloped darkness within him, transforming his goals from becoming a Hokage on achieving a perfect world wherein there would be no pain, death, and suffering. And that boy was sounding like Eren Yeager for real. And some even call him the Naruto that lost his way. And how did he do that? By succumbing into extremist methods by unleashing the Nine Tails on Konoha that will lead to Naruto becoming its Jinchuriki upon its birth, corrupting Akatsuki's ideals into his personal vendetta, helping out Itachi carry out the Uchiha massacre, declaring the 4th Ninja War, and becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. His fight with Kakashi was also a notable one, which had the biggest moral compass staked off. In so many ways, even before he made his appearance and became one of the primary villains, Obito has shaped and manipulated the entire Naruto series. His tainted morality, motivations, and identity. Granted, a lot of them were really unfortunate and out of his control, but he is the embodiment of what happens when a hopeful boy who has been tormented into darkness has lost his ninja way. He becomes the biggest threat humanity have ever seen and a reflection of what Naruto could have been if he hadn't met Iruka and his friends. He's a well-written character, so for that, I'm gonna have to put him at the S tier. So that concludes our tier list, and that was a very long one. Do you have any thoughts about this video? Leave your comment down below, subscribe, and let me know. Thanks for watching, and keep living out there.